Hi, I'm Wamsley. I'm CEO of Auroracorialis Publishing, as well as an author of 9, almost 10 books. My 10th book, The Treasures We Seek, will be coming out this fall. And I'm also a writing coach and speaker. And I love talking to people about their books and how we can make books overall just better, because I see a lot of people out there struggling, and I want to make sure that they have all the information that they need so they can get a quality book out that speaks to their audience and helps them meet their goals. So today, what I want to talk about is, how do you make a great book cover? What does that take? Sometimes we think, oh, it's just a pretty picture. That's just something nice, to wrap the book in, and it looks cool, and some people like them and some people don't care. But we've all heard people judge a book by its cover. And it's very true, because when you see a book, you need to know if it's actually something that you want to read. If I pick up a book and it's got a picture of a tank on the front and somebody wearing a helmet and camo and they're holding a gun, it's not a book I'm going to read. That's not something that speaks to me personally. Now, maybe somebody down the street from me, that's going to call to them. Maybe that's the kind of story that they want to read, but that's not imagery that calls to me. So if somebody was writing a book and they put that imagery on the front, then they would need to know who their audience is, so they're not calling in the wrong people. Because if that's on the front and they were actually aiming at female business owners, kind of a mixed, conflict there. So I'm going to show you some of the book covers that we've created, because I want to talk about what decisions were made to actually create a book cover that calls in the audience, to put it very simply. So I'm going to share my screen, and we don't need the Zoom launch. Let's get it. Thank you. All right, we're looking at Auroracorialis Publishing's book covers. And you can see these are kind of in order backwards. So the most recent one that we did was A Mom's Will, a story of hope and determination in overcoming Will's mysterious illness. And this is one that we published in July of 23. And you can look at the cover and note certain elements of it. So one element of this is the path. And, it's obviously, when you first glance at that, you're like, oh, it's nature. It's this nice scene in the background. Maybe it looks like mom and her kid are having a good time together. There's clearly, smiles on their faces, so they're happy. But this story is about a journey that they had to take, because Will, the child in the picture, was diagnosed with epilepsy when he was 2. So the path is representing how they've gone through their journey. You'll note also in the bottom left, there are some little squiggly lines. They kind of look like the lines on like an EKG or some other hospital equipment. If you don't know what you're looking at, you would probably just assume hospital equipment. There's some sort of a hospital journey, a medical journey. And if that's something that you're looking for, then you would say, oh, okay, this is kind of calling me in. I'm a mom and I have a child that has a mysterious illness. What is this about? So the goal of the cover of this book is to call in that type of person, a parent who has a child, in this case, going through the challenges of epilepsy. And then, of course, if you flip to the back, you get more detail. But when people see the front cover, that's what calls them in first, unless they're online and they're just reading the back cover and they don't have the front easy access. So that's that one. Now, this one here, The Unraveling, My Story of Faith, Forgiveness, and Family Restored, is a completely different story. And you can tell when you look at this. So there's this rich, I'm going to quit doing that because it keeps popping up the other thing. There's this rich purple, which to me feels very warm. You see a tree in the background, and you see it echoed in that lock. Now, that to me says, okay, there's some secret locked away, and it probably has something to do with a tree. What kind of tree? In this case, it's a family tree. And when you read the cover, you can see a family restored. So this has something to do with the author's family tree. You see, the shadow, the silhouette in the front with a woman walking toward that. So you get the sense that she is approaching her family tree, approaching this secret. And, I'm going to spoil it for you. There's a happy ending on that one. But if you're somebody who's really interested in these kind of real stories, somebody sharing some big secret that happened in their lives that they had to kind of dig around and figure it out and, search for the truth, that's going to call you in, because those elements in particular are going to speak to you. This one here is pretty obvious. We've got a baby on the front, a prescription. Yes, we are calling in parents, grandparents, caregivers, anybody who has children of that age. So if you are somebody with a child of that age, you can tell that this is more of a reference book. So it's less story and more calling to a specific need. In this case, something that parents need to have on their shelves, because they want to make sure that they have all the answers for all those bumps and bruises and what the heck is this that happens in the early stages of childhood. Now I'm going to skip down here a little bit, because I want to talk about this book here, Step Into Your Spotlight, Inspiring Women to Play Bigger. Now, this particular book is by a speaker and coach, and the author is on the cover, right? So we don't do that with every single book, but in this case, this is something that we need her to be recognized. So Heidi Park Herner, she has this great kind of Hollywood background, sort of thing, theatrical background. So the picture that she actually had taken for the cover looks like she could be, by the director's chair, calling the shots. She's helping people step into the spotlight. So we did, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So the picture that she chose really calls in that audience who has that kind of like, oh, I want to be a little bit glam, maybe I want to step out of my comfort zone a little bit. And they're called to that specific feeling. So the cover is creating this feeling of, some glitz and glam, maybe a little bit of fame. It's definitely telling people to step into your next level. And of course, with all the pink and the fact that it says inspiring women, we know it's calling to women in particular. And it's, an amazing book, of course. Down here a little bit, here's another one. So the authors did not opt to be on the cover for this one. And the reason for this one is because we really want to focus on what the challenge is with the reader themselves. This is for She Who Grieves, Practical Wisdom for Living Hope. And you can see that if you're somebody who, is going through some sort of a grieving process, whether that's the loss of someone through death, the loss of a job, the loss of your identity, no matter what that is. Maybe you're an empty nester and you're kind of grieving having your children leave the nest. Maybe you're grieving a relationship. There are so many things that we can grieve that I never even thought about before I read this book. But if you're going through that kind of a challenge, you don't necessarily want to see two women, their smiling faces and going, I can help you. For this, you feel like you're kind of lost in the waves. You feel like you're drowning sometimes when you're going through these challenges, which is why our cover designer went with the beautiful waves. And you can see, the front is that deep, dark, like, okay, you're really down in it, but then you as you work up through, you can see it works toward the light, which is really important because, as you can see through the title, it's all about living hope. So even though you are grieving, you still want to have that hope. You still want to find joy. You still want to live your life, even with the grief. And of course, the lovely little life preserver, I really appreciate that touch. I think that it's a really nice thing to be able to feel like, oh, the authors are throwing this out to me. They are saying that they're going to help. They're going to throw me a life preserver and help pull me back into the shore. So I thought that was a particularly good cover for everything that they were trying to accomplish with that. And of course, a little bit different. We've got some fiction books over here on the right. These are going to be calling in a fiction audience. So most of the rest of the stuff is nonfiction, but you can see like this one here, Falling Lessons by Stacey Elza. That is aimed at adolescents. This one, it's set in 2050. So we wanted to make sure that you understand there's this, little bit of mystery. And I always feel that, the night sky is very mysterious. It's like, it makes you wonder what is out there. Where have we been? I'm looking at the same stars that people have looked at for thousands of years. So there's all that kind of wonder. That's something that was actually pulled in from the book, because that's something that the characters enjoy doing, is looking at the night sky, looking at the stars, thinking about the planets. And you can see, actually, our cover designer, Karen, did a gorgeous job on this. She drew, and it's over here on the left. I did it again. She drew the girl who's in, it looks like a Hapkido outfit, which is a martial art. So it's kind of that white tunic and pants sort of outfit, catching a star, because Falling Lessons is such a deep title, because it's about more than just falling stars. It's about falling in love. It's about learning how to fall in the Hapkido class. So there are lots of different layers to that title, which I really, kudos to Stacy for picking that. But this sort of book is going to call out more to a middle grade reader, somebody who's early teen, because they're going to see this and say, oh, that girl could be me. That's something I identify with. You can see the children's books here, Where the Lost Socks Go, King Kindness. Those are fun covers. Those are punchy. They're calling into kids, but they also are professionally done and look like something that a parent isn't going to hate reading, which is a challenge when you are writing a children's book. You have two audiences. You have the parent and you have the children. And if the parent hates reading it, they're going to make that book disappear. Speaking as a parent, I don't know what happened to that book. It, maybe check under your bed. It's a recycling bin. These kind of books, they are wonderfully written. We don't put out anything that isn't, but something like this, it looks like it's going to be fun for the kids. It looks like it's something that's going to be potentially interesting for the parents too. And finally, I'm going to talk about my book, Braving the Shore. This is one that I put out in June of 2022. And the way that the cover was designed for this one, obviously the title, Braving the Shore. So we went with a shore image, but the reason I picked that title was because it wasn't just about the one sister coming back to the island and having to, come back to where she lived, and she had to brave the actual shore. But it's also about the sisters needing to go across other boundaries. So the shore in this book represents a boundary. So here's, your life before and your life after. And using the shore on the cover reinforces that image. The sea glass is actually something that is a motif in the book. The one part of the island, there's actually a lot of sea glass that washes up just because of the current. So it's something that a lot of locals like to go there and hunt for sea glass. And then, of course, the echo of the two sisters' faces. They're twin sisters in the book, so it makes sense that we have the two faces on there. Something like this is going to call to a fiction reader. So it's not some fun, punchy sort of romance. It's not, super serious, but there is a little bit of mystery to it. So that's what this cover does. So couple things if you are thinking about a cover, and I know this one's a little bit longer than usual, but I wanted to make sure that you had that description so you could fully understand where good covers come from. Things to think about when you're looking at your cover: who your audience is, what you want them to get out of the book, how you want them to feel. When you're, if you're working with somebody else on the cover, somebody who's not on my team, then you'll also want to look at covers that are in that genre. So look at the ones that would be like on the virtual shelf with your book and see what they look like. See what you like, see what you don't like. Because sometimes we have this great picture in our head and we're like, oh, this would be a really pretty cover. But really it's not going to work because it's super dark and it really looks, it looks like it's a Gothic novel, or because it's way too fun. And I know you have, you're a funny person and you like to make jokes, but that's not the audience that we're calling in with this particular book. So always think about that kind of stuff. You want the book and the cover to work together to call in the audience. If you're thinking about a book and you have questions, you want to reach out, no matter what point you are in your journey, please let me know. Go to the website, auroracorialispublishing.com, and go over to the contact page. I'm happy to talk books. I love talking books. And we bring people in at 3 different points, either with ghostwriting, with coaching, or with editing, if you chose to write your book by yourself. So have a great day. Thanks for joining me.